Alright. Welcome, everyone, to your Enhancement Talent Review for WWE Monday Night Raw is Bore. October 21st, 2019. Man, oh man. You like what I did with the picture here, the thumbnail? Everyone's out here paying graphic designers because they don't know how to use GIMP or whatever other graphic editing softwares there are. You know what you can do this with? Like this right up there? You can do that in Paint, like I did. And you can be a real pro, like I am not. But you see what I did there? Because Rusev, he has the ring on his finger, and it's you see Bore ring. Come on. Come on. Yeah, you at least smiled, if not laughed. At least give me a smile, like maybe a chuckle, a smirk, a grin. Like that took me 2 minutes to make. So that I would appreciate a giggle, a chuckle, a grin, anything like that, because there was nothing to do any of those things for on this episode of Monday Night Raw. There was nothing to giggle, smile, grin, or chuckle about, because this Raw stunk. And there were few and far between things to get into, but as I just said, they were few and far between, because this was 3 hours of nada. And normally I have a headline topic. I will pick out a headline topic. We'll start at the beginning there. We'll get the big important thing out of the way. Then we'll meticulate through from the beginning. I ain't even got, what the hell is a headline topic on this show? Rusev confronts Bobby Lashley in a fake restaurant. Seth Rollins versus Humberto Carrillo. Andrade versus Sin Cara. I mean, I guess I could have went with the Street Profits debut, but who cares? We'll get into it from the top, because there is nothing worth starting with. Shout out to Alpha Wolf in the chat. Good to see you, buddy. I'm glad to see that you have finally decided to actually watch my stuff. That means a lot to me. I don't need none of these pretenders that act like they watch my stuff but they don't. So I appreciate you being in the chat. But let's get into the show. We opened with Ric Flair cutting a heel promo in 2019. Ric Flair came out to the ring to cut a heel promo to open Monday Night Raw in October of 2019. And it was awesome. Ric Flair, they normally, sort of restrict Flair. It seems like they don't want him on a live mic very much. At the when they announced the Crown Jewel match, the 5-on-5, it was like Flair could barely get a word out before someone's entrance music would cut him off. In this case, they let Flair go. They let him do his Ric Flair shtick. They let him do all the sex innuendos, talking about all the girls he slept with in Cleveland or whatever. And he's going to introduce the 5th member of his team to take on Hulk Hogan at Crown Jewel. Well, take on Hulk Hogan's team, rather. And he introduces this man as someone who has already kissed every woman in Cleveland. Drew McIntyre. Well, firstly, I feel bad for Drew McIntyre if he has in fact kissed every girl in Cleveland. Because Cleveland, you know what, we're not going to go there. Cleveland is a very nice city. So Drew McIntyre is introduced as the 5th and final member of Team Flair. And this is going to lead into a match with Ricochet, or Spider-Man, as Jerry Lawler is apparently just going to continue comparing him to. Like, Ricochet is here to prove that superheroes can be real. At least we didn't get a Ricochet promo tonight. That would have made things considerably worse. But, you know, this match was good. And it was also Drew McIntyre's first match back since the King of the Ring first round, where he got bounced because he was injured. Or sick, or something like that. I don't exactly remember. But this was good to see Drew McIntyre match back. It was kind of a formulaic match at first. Like, Drew McIntyre gets the heat, goes into the commercial. Eventually, Ricochet makes the comeback. And once Ricochet started getting into the comeback, that's where things got good. Ricochet took a gnarly looking, I wrote it as a buckle bomb, but it was like the Irish curse, or no, the Celtic cross that Sheamus does, or the Razor's Edge, or whatever you want to call it. But McIntyre launches Ricochet from that position into a buckle bomb, which looked gnarly. That followed up by a power bomb for a near fall for McIntyre. Ricochet gets a cool near fall when he finally gets McIntyre up for a Death Valley driver, followed by a shooting star off the top rope. Ricochet is going to go for his recoil finisher, but McIntyre deadlifts him and chucks him over the top rope and splats to the floor. It looked painful, and like it wasn't one of those where you throw him over the top rope and he grabs the rope and hits the apron and then hits the floor. Like, Ricochet went from Drew McIntyre's arms to the floor and splat. After that, McIntyre threw Ricochet into the post, got him back in the ring, Claymore, and game over. GG to Ricochet. Drew lays him out post-match as well. He's going to do the reverse Alabama slam into the steps. Ric Flair was sitting ringside for this, loving every minute of it. And, you know, I'm sure people are going to act like the sky is falling because, you know, Ricochet lost a match. But, I mean, come on. It's over with Ricochet. They've somehow turned Ricochet into just another guy. So it's too late. So we might as well enjoy it for what it's worth. This was a good match, and it was a competitive loss at the very least. It wasn't like when Ricochet randomly lost to Robert Roode, or when Cedric Alexander lost to Cesaro. It was a competitive loss, and one that's not going to hurt Ricochet at all, because he's already in an even field with everyone else, so what difference does it make? It was a good win for Drew. Good to see him back. And, yeah, that's about all I have to say on that. After that, there was other promos and such that I didn't take note of. When it's something that I don't even feel like there's a point in discussing, I'm just going to skip over it. So we get, well, I guess I should probably skip over this then, because Aleister Black gets a squash match against someone by the name of Tyler Reynolds. And, you know, bless him. Bless Tyler. You know, he got a WWE paycheck today. But this dude looked like he'd been wrestling for a week. Like, as far as the fluidity of things, and, like, specifically what he did was he would get hit by a strike from Black, he would fall on his ass, and then get right back up. Like, he didn't know how to take a bump, practically. And I'm not saying that that's the case, I'm just saying that's how it looked. But it was very apparent when Black pushes Reynolds into the ropes, then hits him with the big pump knee, and then Tyler is immediately getting back up to the point where Black put him in a headlock and just took him to the ground because he's just going like, stay down, pretty much. And then he got back up, gets a black mass for his troubles, and a 1-2-3 for Aleister Black. Nothing much here. There was, just another squash for Aleister Black before we are going to hopefully eventually actually do something with this guy of any substance. But, like, he's been on the main roster since before WrestleMania. Like, the tag team with Ricochet, never capturing any tag team titles with him, and now they're trying to build him back up as a single, and they haven't screwed it up yet because they're just gonna keep giving him jobber matches, but eventually you got to do something, and they're not doing anything with Aleister right now. Then we got King's Court. Jerry Lawler in-ring interview with Rusev. Jerry was getting the what treatment throughout his entire dialogue, asking Rusev what must be going through his head with Lana, with Bobby Lashley, and all that nonsense. Rusev does ask the crowd politely to respect the Hall of Famer that Jerry Lawler is, and that stops the what chance. So good on Rusev. But Rusev says that Bob Lashley, and yes, he did call him Bob Lashley, has poisoned Lana's brain. Sheesh. They must be into some kinky stuff there. But anyway, Rusev even goes on to say that he still wears his wedding ring because he still hopes that at the end of the day they will get through this and they will live happily ever after. And that's the picture you see above me with the boar ring. Rusev was warning us of what was to come on the rest of this Raw show. And yeah, so Rusev just looks like a complete and utter fool in this segment, but alas, Lashley and Lana pop up on the screen in a quote-unquote a restaurant. This was an area backstage that they cleared out and made look somewhat resembling of a restaurant. And Lashley and Lana pop up. Lana goes on some dialogue about how Rusev never took her to this specific restaurant that she always wanted to go to, and blah, 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 blah. Rusev then says he knows exactly where they are, so he's going to deliver them a message personally. And I might as well just get to it now because it happened later in the night, but I don't have it written down, so we'll just go now so I don't forget. Later in the night, Rusev breaks into this restaurant after somebody had told Bob Lashley that they feared that Rusev was coming, so they told him that he should leave. But Bobby Lashley said, nah, I'm good. So Rusev comes in, and he beats on Lashley for a bit, takes him down, throws him around. There was no good food fight scenes or anything. That was unfortunate. I mean, you might as well make a joke of this at this point. Like, I'm surprised Lana didn't get, like, a cake to the face or something, like she would in those old segments with Rusev. But nonetheless, afterwards, the police come in, and they detain Rusev and put him in handcuffs and take him away. as Lana is screaming to put him in jail. But, yeah. So that is what it is. I mean, I still question whether or not the goal of this is to actually get Rusev over as a bigger babyface than he would have been before. But they at least did this part right. Rusev finally gets his hands on him. He's done looking like a bitch like he was earlier in the night. And, you know, we can get a actual match out of it at some point. I doubt it'll be at Crown Jewel because, you know, Lana can't be at Crown Jewel. So, I'm sure they'll save it for something else. We had Sin Cara versus Andrade. This was like Andrade's debut match like 2 years ago, I'm pretty sure, on the main roster. But nonetheless. I appreciate that Dio Madden on commentary took the time to mention how Zelina Vega and Andrade originally ended up together in NXT. Because I feel like it's hardly ever mentioned on the main roster how Andrade originally in NXT, he was all about partying. He wasn't, you know, like as focused as he could be. And that's what ultimately cost him matches. And so that's when Zelina Vega came in. She became his business manager. Got him on the straight and narrow on focusing on being a big star by winning matches. And that's what set Andrade on the run that he went on as NXT champion. The instant classic he had with Johnny Gargano at whatever takeover that was. Still one of the best matches in NXT history, that was. And I like that Dio at least took the time to mention that origin, because a lot of the time, person anymore. As far as the match goes, I counted 3 different times where Zelina, in some form or fashion, interfered in the match, distracted the referee, or did whatever. And including where she hits the Hurricane Rana off the apron to Cara. Andrade gets him in the ring, gets the Hammerlock DDT for the win. I'm gonna come off like a freaking broken record here, but why does Andrade need Zelina's help to beat fucking Sin Cara? Who is Sin Cara? The guy's never even on TV, and Andrade can't beat him without interference. Are you kidding me? Seriously, and you know, and like before someone says I'm a hypocrite or something, like I made this same complaint about the Chris Jericho match on AEW this last week, that Jericho could not beat Darby Allin, who had his hands tied behind his back, without Jake Hager interfering. So what does that say about Jericho? And in this case, what does it say about Andrade? You know who has a manager that never interferes? Brock Lesnar. Paul Heyman virtually never interferes in a match. And you know why? Because they want Brock Lesnar to look legitimate. Clearly, they don't feel the same way about Andrade. And I'm not saying that Zelina should never interfere in a match, because obviously Andrade's a heel, Zelina's a heel, that's part of the act. But when it's every match, when Andrade cannot beat the likes of Sin Cara without interference, it makes no sense. I don't get it. I don't understand the point. I don't know why I'm supposed to take any of it seriously. But nonetheless, we digress onto this review. The Viking Raiders kill Hawkins and Ryder in a squash match. But, you know, still gratitude era for Hawkins and Ryder. They're grateful that they're even on TV. And shout out to Crazy Shark in the chat for becoming the latest subscriber. You are number 60, my friend. A great number. After this, Rey Mysterio comes out, and he cuts a painfully long promo. about, like, nothing. Talking about being so gracious to the fans for their love and support for his family and blah, 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 blah. This thing went on forever. And then Paul Heyman pops up on the Titantron. And they go back and forth for a minute. But afterwards, Shelton Benjamin comes out. And Shelton Benjamin is there to tell Ray that Brock Lesnar, because he trained him in Minnesota and their amateur backgrounds and all that background story, Brock Lesnar is Shelton Benjamin's family. So, Benjamin comes in the ring, and Rey Mysterio, whose arm is still in a sling, by the way, which is important to this, because Shelton is complaining about how Cain Velasquez gets to just come in and get a WWE title match right away, so Shelton is just pushing Rey and saying, maybe this will get me a title shot. This will be a United States title shot. This will be an Intercontinental title shot. And Rey is just saying, wait until I get healed, we can have a match. And Shelton's just saying, oh, Cain's not here to help you now. But sure enough, Cain Velasquez was there to help him. He comes out, takes out Benjamin. Benjamin actually tried to do a single leg takedown, which Cain did not budge for. And Cain instead took Benjamin down, threw some punches at him, and then put him in a sleeper hold. Once Benjamin tapped out, Cain let him go, and Benjamin scurried away. And now, we have a Seth Rollins interview. Oh joy. Everyone's favorite. I've had plenty of other content on the channel about my feelings on Seth Rollins still not being a heel. But Rollins is doing an interview with Charlie Caruso. And Rollins does some boring dialogue, as he always does, this time about how he burned down the Firefly Funhouse and how he did what he had to do. But then Seth spots something in the distance. And he walks up and finds Humberto Carrillo. And I forgot to mention this earlier, that Humberto was watching the Andrade and Sin Cara match. And afterwards he had an interview. He made some sort of offhand comments about Seth Rollins burning down the Funhouse, and that Humberto hopes to be the Universal Champion at some point in the future. So Rollins comes up. Rollins says he heard what Carrillo had to say about him earlier. Of course he did. Seth Rollins has rabbit ears in kayfabe and non-kayfabe. If you say something wrong to him on Twitter, he will block you. He hears everything. It's like the Kevin Durant of WWE. Rollins says he heard what Carrillo said earlier, and informs Carrillo that he did what he had to do. And the things that Rollins has to do are what comes of a Universal Champion. And then Rollins commends Carrillo for saying that he wants to be a champ one day. And so Rollins offers Carrillo the opportunity. Rollins versus Humberto Carrillo. I like the name. They need to bring what's his name? Alberto Del Rio's ring announcer. I'm blanking on what his name is, but I can picture it just being Humberto Carrillo. Anyway, we get to that match. Right away, a crowd is chanting, "We want Wyatt." But Bray Wyatt was drafted to SmackDown, you see, so he cannot appear on this Raw show. But he can fight the Raw champion for the Raw title. Makes sense. They have a fine match, Carrillo and Rollins. Carrillo got a lot of stuff in. Seth gave him a lot to work with. but the crowd just were not into it. And, that's to be expected when you have, for one, Rollins, who is ice cold right now as a babyface, and Humberto, who the majority crowd is not introduced to yet. But I give them credit because they put Carrillo in a spot where he could sink or swim on his own. And, I thought it was a good match. The crowd didn't really get into it, but, it's a tough spot. I hope they don't give up on him for that one thing alone. But, yeah, Carrillo gets some good high-flying stuff in. Rollins is going to win with a stomp. And Rollins comes back in the ring to shake Carrillo's hand. So, puts him over in defeat. This is a better debut than Carrillo would have had if, let's say he does what Aleister Black did and beat a local enhancement talent. I would rather have this debut than a jobber match. It's certainly a better debut than Drew Gulak. Someone different a chance, and they let him get his stuff in. They let him show what he's about to the main crowd against a top guy. So I give them credit for that. And, whether it works or not, whether they stick with it with Carrillo or not, at least they tried something different. So I will always give that a positive. As far as Rollins, I felt like he worked mostly a heel sort of match in this one. Until, afterwards where he shook his hand. But for the most part, this match was definitely designed to help get Carrillo over. So I give them credit for that. And after this match is when we are shown a graphic that tells us there will be a Firefly Funhouse this Friday on SmackDown on FS1 for this week. And I'm interested in what they're going to do. Because obviously Seth burned down the freaking Funhouse, or at least part of it. Bray Wyatt said on Twitter that Rambling Rabbit had passed away due to the heinous arson assaults of Seth Rollins. So I'm sure he will be back. But it'll be interesting to see what they do. And then here comes the confusing bit at the end here. This is the main event of the show, the Street Profits and a mystery partner versus the OC in a 6-man tag. Right? That was the promoted main event. That was what we were shown on the graphic throughout the week on social media, on this show. So the Street Profits come out. The OC then come out, and AJ Styles cuts a promo. And they show a recap of the beatdown last week for the second time in this same show, I believe. And then it goes to a commercial. And so then we come back with no explanation, no rhyme of reason or of anything. The Street Profits are now fighting 2-on-2 versus Gallows and Anderson, with AJ on the outside as a manager. So, what was the point? Why promote this as a 6-man tag if you weren't going to deliver on that? And more importantly, why wouldn't the OC just be like, okay, well, we're going to fight you 2-on-3 because you don't have a partner, so that's on you, not on us. We have our 3 guys. It's not our fault you don't have yours. And all that took place during a commercial. So, this match was also quite boring, to be honest. Which is a shame, because I know how good the Street Profits are, because you can look back literally a week ago on NXT to see the great match they had with the Undisputed Era that closed that show. And the match that they had there and the match they had here are night and day. Because this is the WWE main roster formula of a match where the babyface team gets worked over forever. It feeds into the hot tag. D'Angelo Dawkins has a bit of a run. But then AJ is going to get AJ Styles is going to get ejected from ringside for interfering. So now, Kevin Owens' music hits. He comes out, hits AJ Styles with a stunner. That leads into a spine buster from Dawkins on whoever was in the ring. I think it was Carl Anderson. Followed by a frog splash from Montez Ford, who has the best frog splash in wrestling today. It gets unreal height on that thing. And that gets the win. So, if Kevin Owens was the mystery partner, then why didn't he just come out with them and have a 6-man tag match? I don't know. There's no explanation to this. There's no anything to really inform us of why. It's just like we're supposed to accept it. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't know if someone was injured, if maybe AJ was injured, or Kevin Owens, and maybe that threw off what they originally had planned. I don't know. And I admit that I can't know these things. But if that's the case, then do a better job of informing us or giving us a reason at all for the things that are happening. And this main event capped off an utterly boring show. There were very few highlights. Really, the Ricochet and Drew McIntyre match was probably the best thing. I liked the Carrillo and Rollins thing that I can really sink my teeth into and think like, oh, well, I wonder what's going to happen here, and this is interesting here, what's going to happen? No, there's none of that. And, WWE isn't as bad now as it was a few months ago, or maybe even last year at this time. But God, this was a chore to get through, to be honest with you. But that's just how it goes sometimes. That is the price you pay of having a 3-hour television show every single week. And some weeks there's going to be stinkers. And this was one of those. This was, I guess, the second to last Raw before Crown Jewel. And, they're building the Ric Flair and Hogan match. They have the tag team turmoil match with every tag team to determine the best tag team in the world. Which, don't get me started on how a tag team turmoil match is supposed to determine the best team in the world. When in a tag team turmoil match, you could come in at number 1, survive 15 teams, and then team number 16 comes in and beats that team, and then they are the best team in the world. So, whatever. But not a lot to get excited about, not a lot to really be into, but I'm gonna close it off there. Thank you for the few of you that are here in the live chat. If you're watching on playback, be sure to give this thing a like and leave a comment below on any thoughts you had on this boring. Great graphic design there. Shout out to me for making it. You're welcome. Episode of Raw. And, let's see. Tomorrow I will be leaving for Pittsburgh. I'll be going to the AEW show live on Wednesday. That's going to be fun. I'll have a review at some point up that night, I'm sure. But other than that, I'm not sure what my schedule is going to look like there. If I'll have a review for SmackDown or Raw next week. If I do, it might be delayed. I probably won't do an NXT review this week. But until whenever it is that I see you guys again. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.